Arc is a lonely loser who got isekai'd as an overpowered skeleton. With the help of a baddie, he beats all his enemies while keeping himself anonymous. The story begins with a character named as Arc, clad in heavy armor. He is seen regaining consciousness in a lush green field, completely unaware of the location. Upon inspecting the body, the sight of skeletal hands moving freely is a shock. Arc looked at his hands, which are bony, pale, and straight out of a Halloween store clearance bin. A moment is taken to calm down, followed by a closer inspection of the gear being worn, highly familiar equipment with resistance to light and fire. Clad in a legendary holy armor of Belinus and the Twilight Cloak, which boosts mana regeneration and grants darkness resistance, Arc is effectively walking loot from a final raid boss. Equipped with status immunity based on level thanks to the Holy Shield of Tutates, and wielding a blade that zaps faster than a speeding ticket on a racetrack, the Holy Thunder Sword, Calibolg, this walking fortress is seriously OP. A vague memory resurfaces of falling asleep while playing the game the night before. Though the thought of it all being a dream crosses the mind, the feel of the sword is far too real. The weight of the armor is barely noticeable, despite being full metal, which makes it clear this isn't just some dream lag. Buddy skipped the tutorial and respawned as a walking bone folder, swinging the sword once with a wyvern/skill slices through tree branches like tofu. A quick fire spell sends the nearby woods into a campfire audition. It's suspected that this world might actually be the game itself, no matter how impossible it seems. The job class remembered was Holy Knight, with Priest as the subclass, which shouldn't allow for mage-level fire magic. A realization dawns that perhaps every skill from the Holy Knight upgrade tree is now unlocked. An overwhelming sense of joy bubbles up at not being restricted to a glorified paladin role. Seems the devs really slapped those skills together for flair more than function. Now fully aware of being stacked with endgame level powers, the next logical step would be a trial run. But first, the rumbling stomach wins the argument. Unfortunately, there's no food and no funds. A decision is made to search for a town. Attempting to use the magic skill gate results in an accidental cliff dive. Barely clinging on, it becomes clear the gate only works for previously visited towns and no destination has been set. A lesson learned, teleporting blind might lead straight to gravity's mercy. Thankfully, a different skill, Dimension Move, allows teleportation to any visible location. In this world, it functions as a short-range, line-of-sight warp with very little delay, making it ideal for both travel and dramatic entrances. Excitedly hopping around with newfound mobility, Arc stumbles upon a lake. Removing the helmet reveals a skeletal face in the reflection. The chosen avatar was the skeleton skin, now staring back from the water like an undead shampoo commercial. Wandering into town in such a form would likely lead to immediate extermination, not applause. Best to keep that helmet on and the dramatic reveals to a minimum. No one wants to become someone else's bonus. XP. Elsewhere, the bustling Louvierte Castle town is abuzz with rumors of a basilisk sighting. Arc strolls through the town when a friendly fruit vendor calls out, addressing him as Sir Knight. A polite refusal follows. Unfortunately, no money in the coin pouch. The vendor is surprised considering the glimmering armor. Even the lady is teasing him, sizzling louder than the plot twists. The town feels solidly medieval, but not overly fantastical. That impression changes quickly when the scent of freshly cooked meat hits. He's got legendary armor, mythical spells, and absolutely no gold. Arc's inventory is 100% drip, 0% dinner. A vendor is roasting something that smells like divine intervention. The craving intensifies, but without money, the feast remains a dream. He's out here smelling roasted meat like it's a gourmet concert. Taking a detour through a back alley because even fantasy realms need shady shortcuts, an argument is witnessed between a suspicious man and an elf girl. She berates him for a poor investigation despite full payment. The sight of a real elf ignites a fanboy level of excitement. Following her leads nowhere, though she vanishes into the crowd. She pulled the Houdini special, no smoke, no mirrors, just nope energy. The next landmark is a mercenary guild. Familiar mechanics kick in. Such places offer paid quests. Inside, curious eyes lock on the newcomer in armor that screams main character energy. Approaching the counter, a request is made for a mercenary license. The receptionist, baffled, assumes Arc is already employed by nobility. Dripped out like a royal knight, but pockets emptier than a bard's promises. A correction is made with enough vague seriousness to shut down further questions. The receptionist buys it, likely assuming some tragic noble knight backstory. A trial is issued to defeat and bring proof of slaying 3 beasts, monsters, or bandits. A nearby guild member whispers, speculating about Arc's reason for working as a mercenary, likely doing it to support a sick child. Sympathy flows freely. Congratulations, a random tragic backstory just got assigned for free. A few monsters later, only one remains. Visions of grilled meat motivate the final push. Real fantasy creatures, it seems, are few and far between. When rustling comes from the bushes, the hope is for another boar, but it turns out to be an orc. Classic trash mob. Time for the real deal. 1 slash later, the orc is down. A proper fantasy kill has finally been logged. The orc is heavier than expected. During the journey back, a scene unfolds. A noblewoman and her maid are surrounded by bandits. No monster this time. These are humans, and this is PvP, not PvE. Stakes are higher. Numbers are against the hero. The girl, Lauren, cries for help while a bandit begins tearing her clothes. Her maid, Rita, also struggles as another bandit grabs her. The situation becomes dire enough to snap Arc into action. Fully geared in mythic armor, he leaps into the fray. One bandit attempts to attack Lauren, but the world turns dark for him before a clean neck slice ends his story. The rest follow shortly, cut down one after another with wyvern slash. Clean, precise, brutal. Rita comforts Lauren as she sobs, thanking their skeletal savior. Introductions follow Lauren Laria de Louvierte and her attendant Rita. When asked about his allegiance, Arc recalls his old character Bio, a cursed knight on a journey to find a cure. An appropriately vague answer is given, and the suggestion to get dressed is gently issued. Cleanup of the scene begins, including disposal of bodies. Despite them being bandits, it feels wrong to leave the corpses strewn about. A funeral pyre is formed that, if nothing else, let them feed the wildflowers. The first human lives taken bring little guilt, perhaps a reflection of their evil deeds or maybe something deeper. Nearby, bandit-owned horses are spotted. Lauren and Rita are dressing, too occupied to notice the looting. Some decent supplies are gathered, enough to cover living expenses for a while. Just as the exit is being planned, Lauren approaches and offers heartfelt thanks. Though the incident was grim, relief is found in their safety. A feast is long overdue. Rita invites Arc to return with them to the Louvierte estate. Mounting a horse, the journey continues. Along the way, Rita offers endless gratitude while Lauren keeps casting glances. The intensity of her gaze becomes distracting, enough to wonder if she's trying to laser etch his soul. Perhaps the helmet is on crooked. Eventually, Rita points out that no name has been given. A dramatic pause, then the name Arc is delivered, just a traveler on a winding journey. And so, Arc begins a life of quiet, low-profile heroism. Back in town, 3 monster proofs are handed over. The receptionist is surprised at the speed of completion. Inside the orc's body, a runestone is discovered, a magical core that can be crafted into items or weapons. A license is granted. Access to the job board is now unlocked, though only minor tasks are listed there. For the serious stuff, a guild membership is needed. Arc doesn't care. Mission complete. Time to feast. A request is made for food to be brought to the room. When it arrives, it's a royal banquet. The taste is so rich and satisfying, it could revive the dead, which, in this case, is slightly ironic. That bite hit his non-existent soul. Even the ghost of his stomach cried tears of joy. After polishing off the meal, the runestone is examined. Beautiful, magical, and proof of a hard-fought quest. Today brought battles, blessings, and a bellyful of meat. One thing is certain, this is no game. This world is real, and tomorrow the adventure continues. The scene opens with Arc's first official job, a humble yet meaningful assignment guarding someone while they collect medicinal herbs. The task is located beyond the plaza, at Siona's residence. A perfect low-profile quest, ideal for blending in. Children can be seen playing nearby, and a modest house comes into view. Upon approaching, it's clear the destination has been reached. Inside, Helena and her elder sister sit at the dining table. Helena's older sister is called over for having crumbs all over her face. A gentle scolding with a warm family vibe. Footsteps are heard, and the door is opened to reveal a fully armored knight standing outside. The elder sister of Helena stands at the door, surprised by the sight, asks the reason for the visit. When Arc inquires about Miss Marka, the girl replies with a cheerful correction that she is Marka herself. Arc informs Marka that the posted job request for protection during herb gathering has been accepted. The receptionist had earlier mentioned that larger assignments would be available through guild membership, but Arc had offered an excuse about personal interest in herbs in order to avoid unnecessary attention. Seated inside, Marka serves tea with curiosity because someone looking so impressive accepting such a mundane job feels a bit unexpected. Arc reiterates his interest in herbs, calling this the perfect kind of early game quest. Details of the job are then requested. Marka asks whether departing immediately would be acceptable. Arc agrees, and the two set off without delay. Inside the forest, Arc inquires about the urgency, noting the job post had warned of fanged boars prowling the area. Marka explains that secrecy is required. Her mother is expected to return soon and would strongly disapprove of this outing. This errand, according to Marka, is meant to make her mother happy. Despite her young age, Marka speaks with mature intent, displaying a deep sense of devotion. Arc reflects on this, recalling how youth was once spent entirely on video games. Words of encouragement are offered, gather plenty of herbs to bring her mother joy. Deeper into the forest, Marka identifies a kokora plant. Kokora is beneficial for healing cuts, scrapes, and improving skin. Burning the flower also repels insects. Marka is well versed in medicinal plants. She explains that her knowledge came from her father, who taught her many things. Near a white kabumi tree, Arc senses danger and halts her movement. From the bushes, a small, injured flying squirrel emerges, not the threat initially feared. Upon extending a hand, the creature bites Arc's finger. A healing spell is used, one from the monk class, bathing the creature in light. The squirrel recovers quickly and decides to follow the duo. The tiny companion is promptly named Panta. Meanwhile, in the village, a hunter reports unusual sightings in the forest and advises avoiding it. Upon seeing Siona, Marka's mother, the hunter inquires if Marka was sent on an errand. Concerned, he informs her that large monsters have appeared and Marka was last seen heading toward the forest with a knight in shining armor. Back in the woods, Marka stumbles near the white kabumi tree and unknowingly approaches a massive creature. Arc reacts instantly, warning her just in time. Before them stands a giant basilisk. Panta, now shaking with fury, reacts aggressively, a clear sign that this was the creature that had injured it earlier. The monster lunges at Marka, only to be intercepted by Arc. A poisonous fog is unleashed, narrowly avoided by both. With paralyzing claws, petrification abilities, and toxic breath, the basilisk proves formidable. Arc holds his ground, blocking each strike with ease. The creature's lengthy tongue lashes out repeatedly, testing Arc's defense. One of computer rescreen, as Marka hides behind him, the holy shield of Two-Tates shines brightly. Despite the chaos, Arc finds time to mentally criticize whoever designed this thing, as he sees his 6 legs. However, he believes 4 would have done the job. A magic circle is formed, and a top-tier Sacred Knight skill is activated. The attack lands with devastating impact, dropping the basilisk instantly. Arc pauses, unsure whether the power came from the skill or from swinging a little too hard. Either way, the second monster slain happens to be a multi-ton basilisk, a classic overachiever moment. Marka stands in awe, while Arc recommends a well-earned rest. Talk of a village celebration quickly puts him on edge. Secrecy is preferred. The request is made to keep the slaying of this monster under wraps. Near the beast's foot, a strange ring is noticed. As Arc reaches for it, the ring vanishes. A theory emerges, perhaps the fanged boars near the village had been pushed out by this massive predator. Suddenly, one such boar appears. A perfect opportunity. The boar is claimed as a gift for the village. Arc returns to town carrying the creature. The villagers gather, rather stunned by the size of the beast. Questions arise. Ark claims the fangs and runestone as his reward and asks that the hide be tanned as a gift for Marka. The meat is offered freely to the village. Just then, Siona appears. Marka apologizes and her mother hugs her tightly, overcome with relief. Siona gently scolds her daughter, asking why she disobeyed orders. But Marka presents a basket full of herbs carefully collected. She scolds her like a drill sergeant, then cuddles her like a teddy bear. Ark steps in to take responsibility, acknowledging the mistake of entering the forest without permission. The request is made not to punish Marka because rarely has a child shown such devotion to a parent. The villagers remain curious about the potential danger in the forest. Rumors of a monstrous beast continue to circulate. Ark casually denies encountering anything unusual. The hunter mutters something about pure luck. Marka remains silent, honoring the promise. That evening, Marka expresses thanks. A flower crown is gifted by Helena, lovingly placed atop Ark's head. Fashion meets fantasy. Marka pats Ponta and bids farewell. With misty eyes, she asks whether they'll meet again. A promise is made. Later that night, deeper in the forest, a grim scene unfolds. Soldiers lie petrified, victims of another basilisk. Despite suffering 15 deaths and 38 injuries, the unit discovers something even more shocking. A separate basilisk has been found slain, brought down by a single blow. Theories range from divine intervention to demonic force. Elsewhere, Ark rests peacefully, having completed another mission. The desire to stay under the radar remains, but a slightly more thrilling quest tomorrow wouldn't hurt. Bandits scattered like startled chickens as a skeleton knight, clad in gleaming armor, gave chase. Fear painted their faces, and rightly so. Being pursued by a walking, sword-swinging Halloween decoration was no one's idea of a good day. The knight, having grown accustomed to taking on low-risk quests to support daily needs, seemed completely unfazed by the chaos. After dispatching a group of brigands with ease, a faint noise drew attention. It came from behind a thick curtain. Sliding it aside revealed a hoard of glittering gold, enough to make any tax collector faint. These outlaws had built a criminal empire. Their shady activities left no doubt about their villainous ways. Nearby cages and plates offered grim clues, suggesting the place served more than just stolen coin. With no time to waste, the knight decided to take what spoils could be claimed and head back towards civilization. Meanwhile, a tense conversation unfolded in the halls of nobility. Celsica, cloaked in secrecy, reported grim news to Triton du Diento, the local lord. The assassination attempt on Lady Lauren, daughter of Lord Louviert, had failed. Triton's eyebrows nearly shot into his hairline. He wonders how trained killers could fail to eliminate one girl. Assassins were not what they used to be. Celsica explained the escorts were indeed eliminated, but a solitary mercenary had wiped out the attackers. Triton, still reeling, muttered that mercenaries were just glorified sword swingers apparently, sometimes very good ones. Attention shifted to the exotic creatures from the Eastern Empire, beasts meant to sow chaos in the Louvierte lands. However, those creatures had been part of an experimental program and had poor synergy. As a result, the pair of basilisks were picked off individually, a tactical failure bordering on comedy. Triton groaned as if someone had replaced his wine with vinegar. When asked why Prince Dakaris targeted the Louvierte family, Triton speculated that the Eastern Empire's backers likely orchestrated it. Gaining control of the northern lands would allow the East to focus entirely on an invasion to the west. Celsica agreed. With the Louvierte family under the protection of Western Prince sect, any revealed allegiance to Dakares could trigger war. Nobody wanted a royal breathing down their neck, especially not the sharp-fanged kind. Triton shifted focus to logistics. Products needed to be secured and prepared for market. Nothing, under any circumstances, was to alert Princess Uriarna. As for his son Udolin, Triton asked whether anyone had seen that idiot boy. Celsica replied that Master Udolin claimed to be escorting merchandise. Frustration mounted. Triton, red with rage, muttered why nothing in life could ever be simple. A fair question from a man who just learned both assassination and monster sabotage failed spectacularly. Under the full glow of the moon, the knight returned with a cheerful gait, a hefty bag slung over one shoulder. A promise of a grand dinner lifted the spirit. No celebration was too small when coin jingled. Ponta, the fluff-tailed companion, was summoned for the journey back to town and the aforementioned feast. Just as the celebration began in the knight's head, an unexpected sword swing came flying. A lone elf girl launched an attack with furious grace. Confusion struck. Was this a surviving bandit with long ears? Blades clashed as the knight parried, not retaliating with full strength. A flicker of recognition surfaced. He remembers that he has seen this same elf before, arguing with a human. Her accusation rang loud that the children must be returned. The knight denied any involvement, calling the situation a grand misunderstanding. The elf, with zero trust, refused to listen to humans, especially one dressed like a bandit. Steel danced between the two, mid-battle negotiations not exactly going smoothly. The knight inquired whether this skeletal figure resembled any typical bandit. Surely even criminals had better skin tone. As the elf ready to strike, her eyes locked on a tiny creature, Ponta. Shock followed. A Ventu vulpus, a rare spirit creature, was frolicking with a human. Her expression transformed from fury to disbelief. Spirit creatures were famously picky. Even elves rarely earned their affection. The knight clarified that Ponta had taken a liking after being saved, choosing to tag along for companionship. It seemed the elf's rage had been slightly misplaced. She apologized, realizing that this was no criminal, but a mercenary knight doing honest work. When asked what brought her to the bandit camp, she shared intelligence. Elves were being hunted. The cages, it turned out, weren't for decoration. No elves had been found inside, however, too late. The elf explained that captured elves fetched high prices on the slave market. The knight expressed genuine ignorance, admitting this was the first elf ever encountered. The elf refused to involve humans further, claiming the matter must be handled by her own kind. Despite a valiant attempt to stop her, she walked away without looking back. This could not stand. He see a beautiful elf girl on a personal mission, which no gamer in history would skip such a side quest. Even virtual heroes had standards. Later, during dinner, the helmet came off and food vanished quickly. Thoughts drifted toward the mysterious mysterious elf. Not even a name was given, yet she had left quite the impression. Being the first girl who ever shared words with the skeletal knight, giving up now felt unacceptable. A plan was formed for the next morning. With the rising sun came the casting of the spell Dimension. The knight landed somewhere near the fabled elf forest, a landscape far denser than the one explored with Marka. According to the guild, elves should be plentiful here. Ponta sniffed around as voices echoed through the trees. Someone was chasing a runaway elf. Apparently, a group had lost one elf girl but found a replacement. A elf hunter proudly displayed his catch to a lanky fellow known as Mr. Udolin. Instructions were barked, shackles prepared. Torture soon followed, accompanied by sadistic threats. A cry for forgiveness was met with steel to the leg. Orders were given to load the captives onto a cart. From the shadows, the knight watched, horror slowly boiling to anger. These were no simple guys. In fact, these were elf hunters. Memories of the earlier encounter returned, the elf's firm words warning to stay out of elf matters. But as the screams of children echoed, standing by was no longer an option. Suddenly, like a moonlit storm, the elf warrior returned. 2 hunters fell before even reacting. "A dark elf," one muttered. "Rare and valuable." Hunters swarmed like locusts. The elf warrior showed no mercy. Bodies hit the ground one after another. Clearly, this was not someone who needed help, but that wouldn't stop help from arriving anyway. Udolin, the coward's coward, used a captive elf girl as a shield to flee. A sword was raised toward the cage. Threats poured like spoiled wine. Hunters advanced, hungry eyes leering, but were quickly interrupted. Arc appeared like a divine uppercut from a god of justice. He enables the armor lariat, a glorious name for a devastating move, and flung Udolin into a tree like yesterday's laundry. The elf warrior finished off the remaining scum, turning her attention to the imprisoned children. Locked cages posed no challenge. The knight stepped up and crushed the mechanism with ease. Children, terrified, clung to the elf warrior. Around their necks, strange collars hummed with suppressive magic. These were mana-eating collars, designed to prevent the use of spirit magic. Basically, it is a cruel trick. The elf warrior admitted no way to remove them here. The knight muttered a spell, uncurse. The collars vanished. A heal followed, treating the injury inflicted by Udolin. The elf warrior, shocked by the ease of both spells and the lack of lengthy incantations, began to suspect this was no ordinary knight. A whistle pierced the air. A whispering fowl, a spirit creature capable of memorizing and delivering speech, landed on the arm of Ariane. The rescue had to be coordinated. The elf forest, not far from Diento, needed reinforcements. Curiosity sparked again. The whispering fowl was introduced, a communication tool among elves. Since taming spirit creatures was nearly impossible for humans, fascination bloomed like a sunflower in spring. Soon after, the elf rescue team arrived. Children were told they were going home. The skeletal knight knelt, promising that if danger returned, a certain someone would come charging again, cape blowing, sword gleaming, and possibly tripping over roots. The children hugged their saviors and departed with hope in their eyes. The elf warrior turned, eyes narrowed in thought. All previous knowledge about humans painted them as violent, crude beings, yet here stood someone who defied every expectation. Teleportation magic, combat skill, healing arts, all from a lone traveler. The name Arc was shared. Ponta received an introduction as a traveling companion, tail proudly twitching. The elf revealed her name at last. That is Ariane Glennis Maple. Gratitude was expressed finally and formally. Another whispering fowl landed. A message was delivered. The elf resistance had set up headquarters in Diento village. Immediate assistance was needed to rescue more captives. As the bird flew off, Ariane turned to Arc with a businesslike tone. If indeed a mercenary stood before her, a proposition must be made. A job offer hung in the air. A strong breeze passed, stirring cloaks and curiosity alike. A new adventure was clearly on the horizon. A brief pause for thought led to a decisive question from Arc 1 that probed the intentions of his newfound companion. A subtle inquiry about whether her comrades might harbor suspicions about him. Ariane imagined the answer and admitted some might indeed raise an eyebrow or two. Had it been any ordinary human, taking that risk would have been off the table. But this one, this towering, mysterious mercenary showed neither prejudice nor hesitation when it came to aiding elves. Not to mention, even a spirit creature had chosen to trust him. That alone spoke volumes louder than any declaration. With calm determination, she asked for his strength to join her cause and help rescue her people. The armored enigma agreed, offering his services as a mercenary. A glimmer of gratitude crossed Ariane's face, her usual sternness giving way to a rare smile. She'd scored herself an unexpected ace. Somewhere amidst the mission, one fact remained constant. Arc had been living the textbook definition of a low-profile life, but fate, and perhaps the influence of a fiery elf warrior, seemed to be rewriting that very chapter. The journey brought them to the Lydell River. With Diento visible on the horizon, Ariane, baffled by how swiftly they'd arrived, struggled to hide her amazement. Arc, never one to let logistics be an issue, casually mentioned that causing a ruckus in town wouldn't help their cause. Hence, teleportation simple, incantation free, and just the everyday norm for him. Ariane was left reeling at the casual display of magical muscle. A brief exchange followed. Arc wondered aloud whether his involvement seemed helpful. Ariane, with an approving nod, agreed. Not only was he helpful, but he might just be the key to their success. As the sun threatened to dip below the horizon, they pressed on. A meeting awaited in town. Another elf. Diento's cobbled streets welcomed them. Arc, curious as ever, inquired about the next step. Ariane revealed they were to rendezvous with a comrade named Danka. At this point, something curious stirred deep within Arc. Ariane, being a stunning elf warrior, naturally triggered a flicker of curiosity. He wonders if Danka would be just as majestic, or maybe an elven beauty with a name to match. A hint of misplaced fantasy perhaps, but harmless enough. Reality, however, arrived with boots heavier than expectation. Entered Danka, sharp-eyed, stern-faced, and about as majestic as a morning slap. A walking slab of muscle and seriousness. A textbook example of what happens when reality kicks fantasy in the teeth. Danka apologized for the delay and swiftly turned his focus on Arc, questioning his identity. Ariane introduced introduced the skeleton in armor as a mercenary, here to assist. Arc stood stiff, sweat metaphorically and maybe literally cascading inside his helmet. If helmets could scream awkward, he would have been singing an opera. Ariane, preferring discretion over spectacle, suggested they move the conversation somewhere private. Danka agreed, and the group relocated to a nearby cafe. But while the elves indulged in local delicacies, Arc politely refused to eat, not due to lack of appetite, but because removing that helmet would be the equivalent of dropping a horror movie in the middle of a rom-com. One skeletal reveal, and people would be jumping out windows. Ariane formally introduced Dunka Neil Maple, an elf warrior like her. Arc, thrown off by the surname, asked whether the two were siblings. The explanation followed. Elven names drew from one's given name, the same gender parent's name, and the village of origin. Hence, the shared maple marked them as citizens of the same forest city, not blood relatives. Danka, slightly irked, cut the family tree discussion short. Talk soon turned tactical. Arc inquired about Danka's findings, but first, food. Glorious, mouth-watering Goa beef skewers and Diento's own honey beer. Arc listened as the elf described the flavors like a man reading poetry. The meat, sourced from local livestock, had a taste unmatched elsewhere. The honey beer, crafted from the finest nectar of the region's wildflowers, was apparently liquid gold. And yet, Danka pointed at Arc, almost like identifying a strange exhibit. The question wasn't, who is this, but rather, what is this? Arc's non-existent eyebrows practically shot into his helmet. Apparently, Danka had skipped the etiquette course. Ariane clarified things. Arc had joined her during the battle against the elf hunters. Not only was he powerful, but he possessed teleportation magic. Danka, skeptical as any seasoned warrior would be, needed confirmation. Arc obliged, though he reminded that the spell came with limitations. Just then, Ponta leapt onto the table, stealing everyone's attention. Danka, eyes widening at the spirit creature, nodded thoughtfully. He see that Arc is a mercenary with teleportation and a spirit companion who is not exactly someone to ignore. Ariane asked whether the enemy base had been located. Danka confirmed that the operation was nestled near the entertainment district, still buzzing with activity even after nightfall. The trio agreed to wait until the crowd thinned. Danka suggested patience. Arc, on the other hand, decided to run errands in the meantime. Post-departure, Danka turned to Ariane, disbelief written all over his face. As he see her, relying on an outsider, that wasn't her usual style. Ariane's expression turned grim. Without Arc, the last battle might have ended in her capture. Whether due to underestimation or impatience, a mistake had been made, a reminder of her sister Evan, who likely would have succeeded where she faltered. Danka, acknowledging her efforts, assured that with time, she'd stand equal to Evan. Still, trust remained a delicate matter. Meanwhile, Arc sold off the loot collected from the bandits. The haul brought in a neat profit, one worthy of celebration. Celebration in Arc's world, however, involved sitting alone and digging into Goa beef skewers, grilled rainbow trout, and a seasonal fruit pizza that looked like a questionable experiment from a dessert wizard. Big Skrenikar, paired of course with Diento's finest honey beer. Flavor in every bite, so strong even the bones in his non-existent jaw felt satisfied. Elsewhere, imprisoned elf children huddled together in a cage. Hunters had already decided to ship them off come morning. A young girl, defiant and hopeful, claimed that a warrior would come for them. Her captors responded with mockery. One even yanked her by the hair and gave her a vile lick across the face, an act that guaranteed a future reunion with a blade. Night fell. Arc returned and was briefed by Ariane and Danka. The hideout, guarded even at the rear, didn't exactly scream, easy infiltration. Danka doubted stealth would work. Arc, unfazed, stated they had a bone to pick. Metaphor entirely intentional. Ariane proposed teleporting to a window. Arc, ever confident, confirmed it wouldn't be an issue. The group moved a safe distance back, because nothing says subtle like a glowing teleportation circle. With hands placed on Arc's armored form, they vanished and reappeared atop a rooftop. Both elves stood dumbfounded. Instant, short-range teleportation. Arcs respond like just another Tuesday. Ariane peeked through a small window, finding the room empty. She attempted to climb in, only to get stuck midway. The great battle between windows and busts. A timeless war. Eventually, after what looked like a one-woman wrestling match, she slipped through. Arc followed, using his power to float right in. Ariane, flustered, scolded him for not offering that earlier. Arc suggested memory erasure instead. Danka, trying to help, told her not to feel ashamed of her physique. Real MVP energy. As they continued, they discovered something unexpected. Inside one room, elf hunters lay dead. Or stounin, each throat sliced with surgical precision. Blood still fresh. Someone had beaten them to the kill. Time to split up and search for answers. Arc entered another room only to dodge a flurry of arrows. Combat instincts kicked in. More projectiles followed. He see a ninja there. Indeed, a mysterious warrior with furry ears and fast reflexes engaged him in battle. Arc, almost delighted, blurted out his excitement. A real ninja. She, confused by his knowledge, eased her guard upon spotting Ponta. Her tone shifted. Apologies were made. With a spirit creature as company, Arc didn't exactly scream villain. She assumed he was here to rescue the elves. While her target had eluded her, she had useful intel. Tossing a scroll, she revealed the elves were held underground, and 2 more were captive in the Lord's Manor. Arc didn't even get her name before she vanished. Mysterious ninja exit should be copyrighted. However, the ninja gave him a contract, which is an actual purchase agreement for elf slaves. Danka and Ariane were floored. They comes to know that the Lord of Diento is involved. That changed everything. The mission now had 2 fronts, finish up here, then storm the palace. While gearing up, elf hunters emerged. Ariane, with no hesitation, cut through 3 of them. No mercy, no delay. They descended to the underground prison. Arc broke the cages open with brute force. The children burst into tears, embracing Ariane. A quick teleportation spell transported everyone to safety. Monocollars were removed. Arc lifted curses with ease. Danka, witnessing the feat, questioned Arc's true identity once again. One young elf girl clutched Arc's armored hand, tearfully calling him Sir Knight. Danka made arrangements to escort the rescued children home, leaving further operations in Ariane's hands. Finally, The trio stood before the Lord's palace, another teleportation spell, and they slipped inside. Meanwhile, the ninja girl from before stood with her companion, pondering the armored knight who somehow knew what a ninja was. Destiny, it seemed, wasn't done with their paths just yet. Triton, with a face fit for a villain and a smirk that screamed trouble, licked his lips like a cartoon wolf spotting dinner. Two helpless elves had been tied to a bed, cuffed like criminals in a cheap drama. Udalan, ever the cowardly sidekick, sat nearby. Triton looked at him with disdain and mocked his miserable failure in elf handling, having tagged along with the elf hunters without permission, then botched the mission, and still dared to return. A masterclass in shamelessness. Triton jeered at Udalan's incompetence and graciously offered a live demonstration of how to handle elves. What a tutorial no one asked for. Meanwhile, Ark, in his usual majestic flair, teleported Ariane near the palace. Ariane, ever tactical, suggested infiltrating via the bell tower, based on the ancient wisdom that fools and smoke always rise to the top. Wisdom or not, it sounded just believable enough. Ark, despite a moment of doubt, complied. No sooner did they land than guards spotted them, politely demanding they come along. The welcome committee was a bit too enthusiastic. Recognizing the gig was up, Ark responded with flair, unleashing a wyvern slash that not only took out the guards, but also sent the bell crashing down, sounding a grand alarm to the entire palace. Subtlety clearly wasn't on today's menu. Back in Triton's chamber of creepiness, the man was mid-underarm lick when his minion Celsica burst in like a man who'd just seen a ghost. Celsica blurted out that intruders had breached the palace, but before the full situation could be explained, the stars of the chaos themselves, Ark and Ariane, made a dramatic entrance. Udalan, trembling like a leaf in a thunderstorm, identified them as the very individuals who had decimated the hunters. Triton, overcome with rage, charged at them. Poor soul didn't even get to swing. Ariane planted a kick so brutal it could have its theme song. Triton hit the floor, whining like a spoiled brat denied candy. Udalan, in classic villain fashion, tried to flee, only for Ark to block his exit. Ark casually punched the wall and accidentally revealed a hidden chamber, secret rooms, the luxury feature of every self-respecting villain's lair. Ariane, in full justice mode, hog-tied Triton and ignored his whining threats. The title of Marquis might have worked at royal banquets, but here it was as useful as a screen door on a submarine. She released the tortured elves and gave them the green light to unleash hell. The elves, consumed with righteous fury, didn't need to be told twice. Their eyes screamed vengeance and Triton's tears flowed faster than a busted pipe. Even Ponta couldn't bear to watch the poetic beatdown, a true testament to the brutality of karma. As guards stormed in, Ark handed Ariane the honor of handling them. With a fiery sword and zero patience, she cut them down like overgrown weeds. She then instructed the freed elves to escape and rendezvous with Danka. Ark ventured into the hidden room, which turned out to be a gold hoard that would make a dragon blush. As he gleefully stuffed a sack, Ariane walked in. Caught red-handed, Ark gave the most suspicious explanation possible. It was all for rebuilding an organization. Classic guilty guy logic. With Ponta's devilish smirk backing him, he spun a tale about depriving their enemies of funding. Ariane, somewhat impressed and somewhat annoyed, saw the logic. Ark celebrated internally, proud of his impromptu con. Trickery had never felt so noble. Suddenly, explosions rang through the palace. Ark questioned if Ariane had gone full pyromaniac, but she denied it. The duo realized only they and Danka had infiltrated. The explosions, then, must be the handiwork of the mysterious ninja. Whoever it was, the palace was now a fireworks show. With their job done, the two escaped the chaos. Ark mentally ticked the mission as complete. Ariane handed him his reward, although it felt like spare change compared to the treasure haul. She asked about his future plans, and when he revealed he had none, she invited him to the land of the elves. The invitation came with a catch. More elves were still in captivity. She needed more help. Ark, like a fantasy fan at a theme park, got excited at the prospect of visiting elf land. However, Ariane warned that an outsider couldn't just stroll in without meeting the elder. Ark sighed at the bureaucracy of it all. Meeting the elder was non-negotiable. When asked if there was a reason for never removing his armor, Ark admitted there might be a risk that she'd raise her sword against him if she saw what was underneath. Ariane swore she wouldn't. She just wanted to see the face of her companion. With a dramatic pause, Ark finally removed his helmet. Ariane was shocked. The face beneath wasn't monstrous but skeletal, yet noble in its own way. Ark explained that he had no idea how it happened, only that he awoke like this, resembling his game character. Ariane, not one to jump to conclusions, assessed the situation. No signs of dark corruption, the ability to heal, and a spirit creature that adored him. Definitely not undead. She promised that the elves would keep his secret, and if it was truly a curse, the elder might help break it. Although Ark knows that this is not a curse, but he still uses this thing to keep the truth in dark. They sealed the deal with a handshake. Ariane introduced herself as a warrior from Maple in the Great Canadian Forest, while Ark declared his quest to lift his curse. In the capital city of Olav, King Carlin Delphi at Roden Olav questioned his first son, Prince Sect, about the Marquis Diento fiasco. Sect dropped the rumor bomb that the elves were behind it. Whew, dramatic tension. Second Prince Dakaris nearly ground his teeth to dust. King Carlin asked Sect for proof, but Sect offered logic instead. The Marquis was trafficking elves to the Eastern Empire. It aligned with the whispers. Princess Uriarna doubted that Diento would ever stoop that low. Dakaris called the rumors baseless and slammed the desk in royal rage. King Carlin, reigning in the testosterone fest, advised calm and ordered a proper inquiry. When asked for her thoughts, Uriarna agreed that if the rumors were true, it could jeopardize international peace. King Carlin tasked her with arranging talks with the elves in Limbold, the only domain with existing relations. The royal trio exited, leaving the king to quietly mutter about the rising mess. In the woods, Ark and Ariane continued their trek. Progress was slow, spirits mildly dampened. Ark scouted ahead but flopped with his dimension move, landing like a sack of potatoes. Ariane found him and reminded him that using magic without vision was, in kind words, dumb. But at least they found a lake. Ark, seizing the moment, decided to fish. Of course, he caught the thing with the enthusiasm enthusiasm of a knight and the grace of a fisherman on vacation. That night, by a crackling fire, Ariane reported that Donka and the rescued girls were on their way home. Hanta, the nap queen, dozed peacefully. Ark asked about the distance to Lalatoya. Ariane mentioned just a couple more nights. A familiar sound broke the silence, Ariane's stomach growling like an angry beast. The earlier fish had failed the hunger test. Ark, ever the gentleman, went off to hunt something meatier. He returned triumphant, dragging a massive boar. The sight of Panta and Ariane playing was almost too adorable for this grim world. Time to clean the catch. Elsewhere, Princess Yuriarna stood on her terrace sipping tea with an aroma worthy of poetry. Her maid Ferna sensed unease. Yuriarna admitted she suspected her brother Dakarez of being in the elf trade, and she feared that Sect wouldn't stay silent. Ferna, a little too enthusiastic, hinted that Dakarez's downfall could lead to a new ruler. Yuriarna promptly reminded her to zip it and focus on diplomacy. With Limbold being the only point of contact with the elves, any misstep could ignite a war. Ferna, ever the optimist, looked forward to seeing Yuriarna's sister Seriarna, who married into the Limbold family. Yuriarna could only wonder how her sister was doing. Back in the wild, Ark and Ariane neared their destination. Ariane pointed ahead, saying that beyond the next pass lay the elf settlement of Lalatoya. Ark dashed forward like a kid spotting an amusement park. The journey wasn't over, but a new chapter was about to begin, one filled with secrets, strategy, and possibly more questionable fish dinners. After arriving at the hidden elf settlement of Lalatoya, the vigilant Ariane promptly introduced herself at the gate, declaring the successful completion of her mission to rescue their kind from the clutches of human captivity. A request was made to meet the village elder, and the gates creaked open in welcome. For Ark, this was the peak of fantasy indulgence, a mythical paradise that could make any fantasy enthusiast shed a single tear of joy. A veritable theme park of high fantasy, practically screaming, "One dream comes true," Ariane instructed Ark to wait at the entrance while she went to gain official permission from the elder. As Ark surveyed the vastness of the settlement, its age and grandeur struck like a bard's power chord. Considering the elves' famously long lifespans, it wasn't hard to imagine this village standing tall since the age when dinosaurs might have still filed tax returns. While awaiting Ariane's return, Ark passed the time playing with the eternally excited Planta. Eventually, Ariane emerged and apologized for the delay, now bearing the elder's permission. With a spring in his armored step, Ark followed her inside. Inside awaited a colossal tree, straight out of every fantasy novel centerfold. Ariane confirmed that this grand tree was the home of the elder. Out came Elder Dylan Tog Lalatoya, with the gravitas of someone who has lived long enough to see every fashion trend return twice. He welcomed Ark warmly, acknowledging his assistance to his daughter. Beside him stood Glynis, Ariane's mother and Dylan's wife, who introduced herself with elegance and flair. Ark introduced himself as a traveling mercenary. It took him a solid moment to connect the dots that these two ancient elven beings were Ariane's parents. Glynis chimed in with a cheeky boast, claiming to be 170 years old and proudly not aging another day. Ariane visibly sighed, clearly aware that the actual number was closer to 245. Elven women and their eternal youth game truly undefeated. Dylan shared that Ariane had given him a general account of their exploits and expressed his deep gratitude for Ark's aid in rescuing their people. However, the elder couldn't help but point out that attacking a feudal lord's estate was an unexpected twist. Ariane retorted that the treaty had already been violated by the humans, so technically, they just RSVP'd late to the chaos. Over dinner, Ark elaborated on the events that led them to raid Lord Diento's estate. Dylan listened intently and acknowledged the importance of informing the Elder Council. A journey to the forest capital of Maple was now on his morning agenda, where he planned to raise the issue of the human trafficking contract. With political business shelved for the moment, Ariane decided it was time to eat. Meanwhile, Ark stared at his plate like it was an unsolvable riddle, still encased in his helmet. Dylan, in his grandfatherly kindness, reassured him that neither he nor Glynis would mind if Ark removed it. With some hesitation, Ark finally took off his helmet and dug into his meal like a man liberated from the chains of etiquette. Afterward, he enjoyed a well-earned night of rest. The following morning, stepping outside, Ark found Glynis already up and moving. She confirmed that Dylan and Ariane had departed. Glynis then sauntered off to handle breakfast like the multitasking elf queen she was. Meanwhile, in the forest capital of Maple, Dylan and Ariane arrived through the teleportation circle. The city buzzed with activity. Seated in the Grand Council Hall was the chief elder, Brian Boyd of Angeline Maple, an elf with a name that sounded like a fantasy book title. The report of the kidnappings was presented to the elders. Back in Lalatoya, Ark and Glynis walked through the settlement, observing daily life and discussing its growing population, now bolstered by several smaller communities that had merged into one. Roughly 4,000 strong, the elf presence was solid. Ariane reflected on how frequent these kidnappings had become. Ark spotted a familiar face among the villagers, the same elf girl previously rescued. Eyes turned to Ark with curiosity and cautious judgment. After all, a skeleton in armor wasn't exactly their typical neighbor. Back at the council, the elders were furious. Violating a 400-year-old treaty wasn't just diplomatic blasphemy, it bordered on war declaration. One elder dramatically recalled the last great war, which humans now treated like a bedtime story, while elves still remembered it as yesterday's pain. While some discussed informing the Rodent Kingdom, Elder Fangus Flan Maple shot down the idea. There was no obligation to justify anything to humans. In fact, revealing their operation could risk exposure and political fallout. Despite knowing that the humans had started this mess, launching a raid on a lord's estate wasn't exactly a PR win. Discretion, therefore, was the name of the game. Back in Lalatoya, Glynis and Ark prepared for a sparring match. Glynis shared that she had trained Ariane herself, and that dark elves, naturally gifted with impressive physical prowess, loved to size up their potential comrades in arms. Also, any companion traveling with her precious daughter needed to pass the mom test. The duel commenced, and Glynis unleashed a storm of speed. Ark hit the ground before he could say, "Parry!" Glynis pointed her weapon at him with all the gentleness of a loving slave sledgehammer. Advice flowed mid-duel, dodge with minimum effort, and avoid being a theatrical piñata. Arc realized that Glennis wasn't just strong, she was a walking combat tutorial. The match resumed with Arc struggling to read her movements, proving that parental approval sometimes came at the end of a blade. Elsewhere, Ariane walked with her father and apologized. Dylan understood completely. Her actions, though bold, were for the good of their kin. Plans were set to officially hire Arc for future missions. Dylan then mentioned missing Even, Ariane's sister, who lived in Maple. Ariane, stunned, learned that Even was getting married. The revelation hit like a fireball spell gone rogue. Even, a combat junkie who once said she'd never tie the knot, was apparently trading swords for wedding rings. Right on cue, Evan arrived, diving in for a bone-crushing hug. She had skipped work just to see them and praised Ariane's accomplishments. Despite the praise, Ariane remained self-critical. When asked if she had marriage prospects, Ariane quickly denied it. Evan joked that any suitor would have to defeat her in battle first, a surefire way to filter out the weak. Back in La Latoya, Arc was exhausted and huffing. In a last-ditch effort, he used Dimension Move to strike Glennis, only to end up on the receiving end of yet another counter. Glennis, noting the setting sun, decided it was time for dinner prep. Arc lay sprawled on the ground, thinking deep thoughts. High stats, it seemed, were everything. Glennis, soaked in sweat, declared her need for a bath, a universally understood elf tradition. Arc, seeing the logic in that, followed suit. He soaked in the tub, finally getting the relaxation every skeleton deserves. Hanta joined in, happily splashing around. The sight was adorable enough to melt stone. Then came a sudden plot twist, which is that Ariane walked into the bath. In true anime fashion, she didn't recognize Arc and instinctively attacked. Arc tried to explain, but the punchline came too late. Later, the two sat at the dinner table, Ariane blushing bright red. A simple notice could have saved her from a shock, but alas, bath time miscommunications were inevitable. Dylan arrived, turning the conversation back to serious matters. At the elder meeting, it had been decided to continue freeing their kin. Dylan offered Arc the chance to assist again, albeit without substantial pay. After all, Arc seemed richer than their entire treasury. As compensation, Dylan offered vital information, rumors of a spring capable of breaking curses, located near the legendary Lord Crown. Arc perked up. This might be the key to lifting the mysterious curse that bound him to his skeletal form. Dylan explained that the Lord Crown was a rare tree found where a dragon lord made its lair. Spirits lived within the tree, imbuing it with magical effects. Ariane added that disturbing the spirits invited disaster, but with elven arrangements, permission to enter might be possible. Of course, the whole curse lore was originally a backstory Arc made up for role-playing. Now, it had snowballed into a real-life quest. Dylan asked if Arc would lend his strength once more. Without hesitation, the answer was yes. After the meeting, Glennis served dinner. Later, Arc removed his armor and helmet before heading to bed. Later on, Arc lying on the bed before sleep gazes at his skeletal form. Doubts crept in. He wonders what if this was a curse? Once just an avatar, now a possible reality. He considered his class abilities. The mid-tier bishop class had uncurse, and perhaps it could be used on himself. With resolve, Arc activated the spell. To his shock, his skeletal hand began regaining mass. A new hope stirred. Perhaps this strange world held a path back to his true form after all. The skeletal mystery persisted, with bones snapping back into their original cursed condition like a stubborn boomerang. No matter how many times the uncursed skill was applied, the results remained the same. One step forward, two steps back. It seemed the curse had either achieved sentience or simply refused to be evicted from its bony host. As the sun rose the following morning, the journey resumed toward Olaf, the capital of the Rodent Kingdom. This was the location where the names on the trafficking contract were believed to be traced. Meanwhile, there was a recollection. The skeletal state wasn't just some quirky magical side effect, it was confirmed to be a curse. A curse that could be lifted momentarily, but came slamming back like a tax deadline. Whether it was a self-renewing curse or something more complex remained a mystery. Ariane, ever observant, noticed a hint of absent-mindedness in Arc's demeanor. Her gaze prompted a bit of mental rebooting. After what felt like an endless trek through the forest, the pair finally broke free of the tree cover. A glistening lake greeted them with its serenity, but peace never lasts long. A swarm of bugs suddenly surrounded Arc, who promptly abandoned his dignity and sprinted like a man late to his own wedding. A brief pause later, the duo settled down for a meal. Ariane, still smirking from the earlier entomological fiasco, inquired if Arc harbored a fear of bugs. The admission came easily. When faced with insects the size of small horses, fear seemed like the only sane response. Ariane, ever the culinary adventurer, revealed that locals often fry the midsections of such bugs. Crunchy, delicious, and rich in protein. Fine dining with a side of insect legs. To reach their destination faster, Ariane proposed a shortcut through the forest. That's when a concerned woman overheard and interrupted with alarm, questioning the decision. The forest was dangerous, she warned, teeming with monsters. Something about haunted wolves. 10 people had been attacked recently. This shortcut had a cover charge. Ariane's expression gave away a growing urgency to save fellow elves. Arc assured her not to worry, which drew agreement. Haunted wolves weren't seen as too great a threat. So, the plan stood. Woods tomorrow, monsters or not. Meanwhile, back in Olaf, Princess Yuriarna traveled in a carriage alongside Ferna. Ferna asked whether the haste was truly necessary. According to Yuriarna, yes, the larger the group, the slower the progress. The goal was the Grand Duchy of Limbold, and speed was essential. Elsewhere, Arc and Ariane arrived at the location where monster sightings had been reported. Ariane, visibly pensive, explained her thoughts were on the haunted wolves. Their fur glowed with a blue light, and veils made from it were considered premium bridal gifts. Her sister was getting married, making these fur-lined veils more than just fashionable. They were a family mission. Arc responded with the sensitivity of a brick, but Ariane told him to forget she mentioned it. Priorities and all. Before sentiment could settle, rustling noises broke the silence. Both warriors leapt into action. Arc slashed a wolf, only to watch it vanish. Illusions! More phantom wolves attacked in waves. Arc got a toothy reminder that haunted wolves were lupine predators who relied relied on illusions to disorient prey. The wolves kept coming, and the confusion mounted. Ariane responded with a burst from a stone of flames. Still, the wolves refused to relent. As some charged from above, Ark's warning saved her just in time. Ariane retaliated with brutal efficiency. A masterclass in tactical combat unfolded. Strength might win a duel, but technique won wars. As for the wolves, they attempted to chew through Ark's armor like it was a chew toy. If only someone had told them they were dealing with top-tier MMORPG grade plating. Ark recognized that raw power wasn't enough. Control over magic and ranged attacks had to improve, and the solution is to take down the boss. The alpha wolf made its presence known atop a ridge. Ark activated Dimension, Move, and appeared behind the beast, striking with intent. However, the wolf dodged with uncanny grace. Then came the twist. A ring was spotted on the wolf's leg, similar to those seen on previous enemies. The wolf lunged for a backstab, but Ark responded with fire magic and shattered the ring. With that, the illusions faded and the wolves dispersed. The alpha locked eyes with Ark, growled in displeasure, and melted into the forest like a shadow on a mission. Ariane joined him, confirming it had been the pack leader. She noticed the broken ring, which disappeared into nothingness. The design was familiar. It matched those seen on the giant basilisk from before. Ark confirmed her suspicion. Creatures appearing out of their native zones connected by cursed rings. Something orchestrated this chaos, though the details remained foggy. Ariane then requested a moment. Although time was short, Ark agreed. She wanted to collect fur for her sister's bridal veil. A brief pause for sentiment among the chaos. Ark waited as she approached the slain wolves. Meanwhile, Princess Uriarna sat tensely in the carriage. Verna sensed unease. Uriarna admitted that this mission was her father's secret directive, but suspicion swirled. Her brother Dakaraz might be entangled in the elf slave trade, and the other brother, Sect, whose ambitions were as big as his ego, might seize the moment to interfere. Before another thought could be shared, an ambush erupted. The carriage rocked. Uriarna fell. Verna reacted, drawing a dagger, but before she could strike, an assassin pierced her chest. The same blade then struck Uriarna. Both collapsed, lifeless. A blonde man commended the attacker, then ordered the scene staged to look like a bandit attack. Enter Panta, furball of fury. One solid kick to the assassin's face, a squirrel with the rage of 1,000 suns. Ark arrived shortly after, witnessing the carnage. Recognizing royalty in the fallen woman, he pondered whether resurrection spells worked outside the realm of online games. In a virtual world, reviving someone would earn thanks, but in this world it would lead to possibly execution. The thugs attacked, but their weapons bounced off Ark's armor like pebbles on a tank. Then came the cavalry, the haunted wolves returning with vengeance. The alpha among them led the charge. Ark decided to clean house. Once the threat was neutralized, Ark approached the fallen princess and cast Regenerate. The spell restored vitality, but if the body was too damaged or too much time had passed, failure loomed. Then, a breath. Uriarna stirred, which seems to be a miracle. Panta stood guard. Ark moved to revive the others. Moments later, Ferna sat up as well, stunned. Both women recalled their deaths but couldn't grasp how they returned. They concludes that it is divine intervention. Uriarna gathered her men. She spoke with firm resolve that they had died, but were granted life once more by the grace of God. To that end, they must move forward with purpose. Ark, hidden in the bushes, acknowledged the unintended consequences of resurrection. Bringing back a royal might be historically significant. Upon reuniting with Ariane, he gave a vague answer about his absence. Ariane, now armed with enough wolf fur to make a royal veil, seemed content. Back in Olav, the city buzzed with activity. It pulsed with life and commerce. Ark recognized the liveliness right before witnessing a street fight. A young woman beat up a gang like it was morning exercise. Then, her glare locked onto Ark like a guided missile. She approached with confidence, revealing herself to be the same furry-eared ninja from Diento. The reunion was not only surprising, but mildly terrifying. To be continued, with fur, fire, and enough curses to fill a dungeon manual. In the royal capital of Olav, the skeleton knight once again crossed paths with the furry-eared shadow walker. The same kunoichi from before appeared, her ninja vibes unmistakable. Grateful for the rescue of the elves, she stepped forward with purpose. Apparently, she had something important to discuss. Ariane, ever the vigilant blade, glanced toward Ark with narrowed eyes. Suspicion clear, she demanded to know who the mystery woman was. Ark, who hadn't had the chance to explain back during the chaotic Diento operation, clarified that this girl had provided the tracking contract. Her name had remained a mystery until now. The ninja introduced herself as Chiyome, one of the 6 elite of the Jinshin clan. Jin stood for blade, Shin meant heart. Put together, it represented those who endure. Ark, with his internal Google Translate set to otaku mode, mentally processed the kanji, blade plus heart equals shinobi, and with that, the furry-eared kunoichi was confirmed. An authentic ninja, no cosplay here. Chiyome, recognizing that the middle of a bustling capital was no place for sensitive conversations, proposed a change of scenery. Later, in the comfort of their inn, the atmosphere had a touch of elegance that only a capital could offer. Chiyome and Ariane were engaged in what looked like a warrior's version of girl talk. Meanwhile, Ark contemplated the connection between kanji and destiny. Blade plus heart flashed in his mind again, confirming that the ninja identity check had passed with flying colors. Formal introductions commenced. Ark revealed his identity as a wandering mercenary. Ariane stepped up, declaring her origins from Maple deep within the forest of Great Canada. Chiyome brought up a previous moment. Back in Diento, Ark had called her a ninja. She wanted to know why. The honest answer, because it was painfully obvious, however it had to stay locked away. Instead, Ark replied that back in his homeland, spies dressed exactly like her were known by that name. Chiyome, visibly shaken, realized that the word ninja was known only to her clan, a secret guarded tightly. The gears in her mind turned. If this man knew the term, then perhaps he hailed from the same place as the great founder. That raised the possibility of something much deeper. With a grin only a skeleton could pull off, Ark wondered aloud if the great founder was still around. Chiyome gave a stone-faced response. The founder had walked the earth 600 years ago and now lived on in legend alone. A light bulb of pure pure anime energy clicked in Ark's mind. If the founder was that old, then there was a solid chance he had also come from Japan. The isekai bingo card just earned another stamp. Ariane redirected the conversation toward the real reason Chiome had come. Memories of Diento made it clear that she had taken serious risks. After a brief internal battle, Chiome finally revealed her goal, that she wanted help liberating her captured comrades. Given the way beast people were treated, the mission sounded heartbreakingly familiar, much like Ariane's own quest. Chiome asked Ark to help her, and she sweetened the offer with the promise of intel, high-value information, in exchange for their aid. Ark, bound by contract to assist Ariane and her fellow elves, was reluctant to overextend. Yet, seeing Chiome, a skilled, determined warrior still young and desperate, tugged at something deep inside. The last thing he needed was more attention, but if there was something useful he could do, it felt wrong to turn away. He turned toward Ariane, seeking her view on the matter. After a thoughtful pause, she asked Chiome if she had been on this mission since childhood. Chiome nodded, her expression unwavering. Her training had been focused entirely on becoming stronger, all for the sake of rescuing her people. In that moment, Ariane saw her reflection. Two warriors from different worlds, united by the same fire. She urged Ark to help, stating that no one else could understand the weight of wanting to save one's kin like they could. Decision made, Ark agreed, not out of duty but from sheer conviction. He told Chiome that it would be his pleasure. Ariane, standing tall beside him, echoed that sentiment. Chiome smiled faintly, then briefed them on what came next. Elsewhere in the palace, Prince Dakaris simmered with frustration. His informant, Cetrion, received an earful. Dakaris wanted to know why the haunted wolves had malfunctioned at the most inconvenient moment. He wonders if the rings were destroyed, and if this mean Uriarna had survived. Cetrion had no solid intel. Uriarna's location remained unknown, though she might have been using the back roads to stay hidden. Rest. A nervous possibility loomed. She could be trying to reach the elves to complete the negotiations. Dakaris, face twisted with irritation, pressed for answers. Who was behind the attacks? All that had been confirmed was the presence of elf-like figures, nothing certain, but if patterns held, those responsible would arrive in Olav eventually. The idea of being hunted sparked paranoia. Cetrion agreed that danger was possible. Dakaris decided action was necessary. He spoke of a secret safe house, hidden, locked down, and unknown to the world. It was time to disappear. Back with Ark and Chiome, the ninja history lesson continued. Ark, remembering earlier mentions, asked more about the great founder. Surprisingly, the founder named as Master Hanzo hadn't been a beast person. He had been a human, once a spy working for the Revlon Empire. He took in beast people oppressed by the system and turned them into allies, planting the roots of the Jinshin clan. The history screamed Japan with every line. A human forming a ninja clan in another world and building a legacy that lasted centuries. Ark's jealousy levels reached critical mass. The thought of someone being that iconic made him want to cosplay out of respect. His strange expressions were noticed by both Chiome and Ariane. Ariane brushed it off casually, mentioning that he acted like this sometimes. Definitely a skeleton moment. Soon they arrived at the infamous Etsat market, the capital's most disgusting and profitable slave market. Chiome declared their plan. They would attack it head-on. Inside, beast people were held captive under horrendous conditions. Two guards outside chuckled, completely unfazed by the horror around them. Business was tough lately, but they believed Prince Dakaris would be pleased nonetheless. Body parts lay scattered on the floor, attracting flies like a discount horror movie set. Chiome laid out the plan. Etsat market was the heart of operations. Once the strike began, reinforcements would swarm in. Ariane raised the obvious concern. Was escape even possible? Chiome admitted that it would be difficult. That was why she wanted Ark and Ariane to create a huge distraction and vanish quickly. She clarified the real strategy. Etsat was only a decoy. Simultaneous strikes would hit the other four slave markets. Her comrades had already infiltrated Olaf. By drawing the guards toward Etsat, the others could be freed. Sacrifices were inevitable, but Chiome believed that saving 100 at the cost of 10 was a trade she had to make. With Ark and Ariane, maybe that 10 could be 5 or fewer. The two allies agreed to join the cause. Ark revealed his teleportation spell. Chiome, stunned, declared him a true master of space-time ninjutsu, worthy of the great founder's title. Ariane realized that the ability to transport instantly could significantly cut losses. Encouraged, Chiome took off in a flurry of ninja leaps to allure her comrades. The attack would begin tonight. Ark and Ariane did the only logical thing, which is to eat. Ark consumed his food like he hadn't seen flavor in weeks. Ariane observed, commenting that food might be his version of battle prep. Ark replied that war could not be waged on an empty stomach. Ariane gave him a dish to try. Ark praised the flavor, crispy, slightly earthy, reminiscent of mushrooms. Ariane calmly revealed it was dragonfly. Ark stared into the void. These were the same bugs from earlier, now turned gourmet. Still, he scarfed them down without complaint. After the meal, there remained one final preparation: disguise. They headed to a nearby forest. Ark donned a creepy mask to complete the decoy look. Ariane commented that he already stood out enough. He asked why she hadn't gotten a mask. She responded with a laugh. He tells Ariane the current one cost 13 gold coins. Creepy and overpriced, possibly cursed. She joked that it looked more like a scam. Ark defended the mask's cultural value. Even Ponta gave him side-eye, crushing what was left of his skeletal pride. Chiome returned with Goemon, who was another member of the Six Ninja. Ark's eyes widened at the name. Goemon was another title. Just like Chiome, the real names were a mystery, but the titles came straight out of legendary ninja folklore. Mochizuki Chiome, Ishikawa Goemon. Ark's inner ninja nerd exploded. Surely the rest of the Six Ninja included names like Sarutobi Sasuke or Kirigakure Saizo. Chiome and Ariane noticed his existential spiral. Goemon stepped up. Ark stepped forward. The two warriors locked fists and began to channel their full strength. Tension built. Ariane and Chiome feared a fight, but instead the two warriors pulled into a bro hug. Muscles respected muscles. Vibes were immaculate. The bell rang. The clouds masked the moon. The operation was go time. Just Just as planned, Chiome and Ariane would strike from the rear. Arc and Gomon handled the front. The guards noticed movement, a beast person, and someone else, masked and unfamiliar. Warnings were shouted. Goemon activated his muscle to stone mode and crashed through the gate like a living wrecking ball. Panic spread like wildfire. Chiome and Ariane used the chaos to slip inside. Arc unleashed his magic. Goemon tanked hits with arms like solid iron. Arc used rock shot, raining flashy magic to draw attention. Guards screamed for reinforcements. Arc, now fully embracing his villain arc, began to laugh maniacally. The guards froze. Goemon hit the ground with rock spear strike, causing the earth to split. Arc followed with rock fang, creating pure devastation. The combo move shattered the terrain. Even the rebel feared them. From atop the walls, Ariane and Chiome looked on. The destruction was so massive that Ariane had one thought: someone might have just buried a skeleton knight alive. Chiome signaled it was time to move. Ariane and Chiome slipped into the palace from the rear, a tactical flex made possible by the absence of guards, all of whom had flocked straight toward Arc and Goemon like moths to a skeletal flame. Without a second wasted, the duo advanced deeper into the palace. Chiome's team members followed suit, ninja flipping their way into the operation. Upon spotting the main gate locked tighter than a level-locked RPG boss, Ariane casually offered to blast it open with some good old magic. But Chiome, ever the practical queen, declined the sparkly kaboom and instead opted for a subtler approach. With the lock undone like a puzzle solved by a speedrunner, they entered. Meanwhile, basement guards had abandoned posts to rush toward the front, lured by the Archegimon distraction spectacle. This left the path suspiciously clear. Ariane, Chiome, and the ever-puffed-up Ponta darted ahead like a trio on a caffeine-fueled speedrun. Unfortunately, Ponta's floofy presence didn't go unnoticed. Some guards spotted the majestic pom-pom and lunged. Ponta sounded the danger alarm, prompting Chiome to slam the brakes and unleash her signature move, body to water, liquid wolf fang technique. It liquidated the guards like expired fruit juice. Reinforcements arrived, but Ariane clapped back with blazing embers, turning enemy ambitions into a fine dust collection. With the guards reduced to smoky memories, the duo pressed on, navigating deeper into the cage area, which is the home to imprisoned beast people. Chiome made her presence known, announcing herself as a proud warrior of the Jinshin clan. Rescue mode activated. Instructions were clear: follow orders once freed. With a swift unlock, she directed the liberated to split up, free the others, and loot the fallen guards for weapons. Peak RPG strategy. As more guards stormed in, Chiome was nearly cornered, but Ariane leapt into action like a fire elf with vengeance issues, holding off the enemies while Chiome continued the prison break. Elsewhere, beneath the rocky rubble, Arc and Gomon emerged like Stone Age superheroes. Channeling his muscle-to-metal arm bracer technique, flexed so hard he basically turned his arms into tank cannons. For a millisecond, Arc legitimately thought this man just died from too much testosterone. But nope, he lived. Barely, but gloriously. With the battlefield mostly cleared, the duo shifted focus to freeing more captives and linking up with Chiome. Soon after, Ariane and Chiome regrouped, confirming a clean sweep in their building. The beast people had assembled in the hall, one building down, one to go. Arc, clocking the looming threat of castle reinforcements, declared speed essential. Gomon volunteered to solo guard the location, handing the next phase of the mission to Arc and the others. The trio dashed toward the remaining building, cutting through guards like a hot sword through breadsticks. Down in the second basement, Chiome unlocked cages like a master locksmith on turbo mode, but one particular cage gave off a stench so foul it could have been bottled and banned. Ariane and Arc arrived just in time. Chiome opened it and was met with the heartbreaking sight of beast people corpses discarded like failed merchandise. The explanation was as grim as expected: the injured and sick weren't profitable, so they were simply disposed of. Grief hit like a punch to the soul. Chiome's eyes welled up, guilt swirled like a storm. She asked the fallen to forgive her. Ariane felt the ache without a word, and Arc bone armor and all urged everyone to move the survivors to safety. No more could be done for the dead, but the living still had a chance. Meanwhile, Goemon found himself surrounded by what looked like the entirety of the royal army. With zero hesitation, he activated muscle to metal arm bracer again. Dude became a one-man iron tank. A loud boom echoed through the castle, catching Ariane and the others' attention. Reinforcements had arrived, and they weren't bringing cupcakes. Arc hit fast travel mode, teleporting beast people outside like a pro logistics manager. Rinse and repeat, back in, teleport, repeat. With the final batch evacuated, the area had been cleared of captives, and the slave market operation is considered as it is terminal. Gomon, though victorious, bore injuries. Just then, Arc arrived by teleportation like a spectral Uber. With deadly calm, he declared that it was time to delete this institution from existence permanently. Rock Fang activated. Gomon mirrored the move with muscle to stone and rock spear strike. This combo attack lit the place up. From a distant mountain perch, Ariane and Chiome watched the fireworks. Chiome, concerned for Arc's safety, stood in silence. Moments later, Arc and Goemon returned, teleporting with the corpses of the slain beast people in tow. They carefully laid out the bodies. At Arc's signal, Ariane summoned sacred flame and performed the final rites. Smoke curled into the heavens. A sad humor lingered in the air. This wasn't the ending anyone deserved, yet it was the one handed out. The souls ascended, free at last. Chiome vowed to grow stronger, to prevent future tragedies from repeating. Elsewhere in the royal domain, Prince Takara's questioned Cetrion about the status of Etsat. The man had no answers, only vague mentions of army confusion. Takara's decided to see for himself, which proves a big mistake. Without any warning, Cetrion stabbed him. Takara's falls on the ground with a dagger in his body. In the meanwhile, Prince Sect entered, who arrived right on cue like a villain from a political drama. Sect commended Cetrion's flawless execution. The plan had worked. Chaos in the castle, beast people infiltration, and a timely elimination of the carries. Cetrion reported that even the Yuriarna situation was progressing smoothly. Despite the interference of a mystery knight, a man had escaped with Yuriarna's belongings, which made for a neat scapegoat. Sect ordered an announcement that Princess Yuriarna had been killed in a plot engineered by Dakaris. But the irony is that Dakaris had always been the Holy Revlon Empire's obedient puppy, and now this was his final reward. The rodent throne now sat gift wrapped for Prince Sect. After the successful mission, Goemon and Chiome reunited with Arc and Ariane. A bro stare followed. With testosterone levels peaking, the two men gripped each other's fists and flexed so hard, time itself may have paused. Muscles were metaphorically and literally weaponized. As dawn broke, the group traveled by boat. Chiome once again expressed gratitude, humbly acknowledging the help. In return, the promised intel was ready. Their next destination is a hidden village in the Calcut Mountains. Meanwhile, Princess Uriarna arrived at the Grand Duchy of Limbold, a bustling capital brimming with life. She leapt from her carriage and charged into her sister's arms like a soldier finally home. The reunion was warm and full of shock. Her sister, Seriarna, who had believed Uriarna to be dead, nearly broke down in tears. Inside the palace, news hit like a brick. Dakaris had caused chaos in Olav and was slain by General Cetrion. Uriarna, visibly rattled, connected the dots. If Dakaris was blamed and her brother's sect was now heir, the pieces weren't adding up. She recalled that her attacker had taken her necklace, the one from their mother, which was later found on Dakaris. It all reeked of a setup. Suspicions bloomed. She wonders if sect have orchestrated everything. For now, Uriarna decided to keep her survival a secret, a wild card to be played later. With sect distracted by his clear path to the throne, she had time to carry out her duty, one that involved reaching the elves. She asked her sister to help her for the sake of both elves and humans. Back with the heroes, Chiome fulfilled her promise and shared the trafficking contract details. The enslaved elves had been taken to the Holy Revlon Empire in the east. Ariane's face hardened at the name. This wasn't just a mission anymore. It was personal. Thus began the international arc. Arc and Ariane set course for the Holy Revlon Empire. Arc, still just trying to help out and now accidentally starring in a political thriller, wondered what kind of nation awaited. Ariane's serious demeanor confirmed one thing. Things were about to get messy. Inside the imperial capital, Emperor Domitianus Revlon Valtiafelbi was informed of Dakaris' death. Shocked, considering Dakaris had been gifted powerful rings, the emperor questioned the Uriarna operation. News came in hot that Uriarna was presumed dead, the rings destroyed, the wolves a total flop. Domitianus deduced that Prince Sect likely killed the princess and pinned it on Dakaris to grab the throne. A sly grin curled. He'd enjoy watching what Sect planned next. The group arrived at a barren stretch of land, only to stumble upon a squad of wyverns. Given their usual solo flyer tendencies, the sight of them bunched up like gossiping aunties at a bake sale was unexpected. Arc, clearly geeking out over the winged lizards, confirmed their identity with stars in his metaphorical eye sockets. Thanks to Lady Chiome's intel, it was known that the kidnapped elves had been taken to the Holy Revlon Empire, so that became the group's destination. Ariane, ever the practical one, realized this was probably why Whispering Fowl was giving off serious, not today, energy. Make matters worse, Donka was temporarily off the grid. Arc, believing it was time for a little shock therapy, decided to scatter the wyverns. From midair, he launched a lightning element area spell called Lightning Damper. Thunder cracked, clouds rumbled, and the wyverns got a free electric concert. Unfortunately, so did Ariane, Ponta, and Whispering Fowl, who were getting fried like chicken tenders at a summer fair. Arc, pleased with the outcome, descended only to find Ariane and the others sprawled out like they had just seen a ghost dragon doing backflips. Alarmed, he wondered aloud if they had eaten spoiled rations, completely missing the fact that he had just zapped their souls into next week. In the shadows, a curious stranger jotted all this down in a notebook. Later, at a cafe, Ariane groaned that her ears were still ringing like someone had set off fireworks inside her head. She requested a little heads up before Arc pulled another spell that could rival a Thunder God's tantrum. Arc apologized, explaining he didn't expect his spell to go full overkill mode. They brushed off the incident and moved on. Ariane whipped out a map and pointed out that the fastest way to the Empire was across the Expital River and through the Phoebiant marshlands. Arc noticed the border town of Kaisake was barely documented, like a forgotten NPC in a side quest. Sensing concern on Ariane's face, he asked if something was up. Turns out, Lady Chiome's info came with emotional baggage. Ariane confessed that unlike Rodin, the Holy Revlon Empire didn't outlaw elf slavery. For elves, walking through that empire was basically signing up for an extreme survival game. Even a border town like this felt sketchy. Their deed convo got crashed by the same mysterious guy from the desert. He asked if they were responsible for that epic spell earlier. Arc owned up, and the man introduced himself as Karsi. Without hesitation, Ariane slapped a hood on Karsi like she was prepping him for a surprise party. Apparently, revealing elf ears in a human town was about as smart as wearing a shirt that says he is not a goblin. Just then, the cafe owner walked over to Karsi, casually asking if he wanted his usual. Karsi responded like a regular, confirming he'd take his go-to meal. Nearby patrons even invited him for drinks. Ariane, meanwhile, was left wondering if this town had slipped into an alternate timeline. Seated at a table, Karsi explained that he had been living here for 10 years, and by now, he was practically a piece of the furniture. According to him, it was a world where humans and elves could coexist. Ariane rolled her eyes hard enough to shift tectonic plates. She wasn't buying the peace and love pitch, especially given what elves had been through. Karsi, fully aware she was a dark elf, found her travel companions, a full-played human, and a spirit beast, to be quite the quirky squad. When asked what he wanted, Karsi shared that he studied monster biology. Some recent cases had been a bit more chaotic than usual. Arc, connecting the dots like a genius skeleton, asked if Karsi wanted help catching the troublesome beasts. Impressed, Karsi acknowledged Arc's sharp wit. Ariane, ever focused, refused as they had bigger priorities. Karsi sweetened the deal with a map of the Holy Revlon Empire, literal gold for their mission. Bonus offer, a copy of his monster studies. Arc practically sparkled at the mention of it. He has love for monsters, peak nerd energy. Hearing Arc's excitement, Ariane relented. Karsi informed them to meet him the next morning at the town gate. Later that night, Arc handed over some extra cash to the proprietress, asking to take his meal upstairs. In return, he got the VIP VIP barrel treatment, a literal barrel full of delicacies fit for a night. Inside their room, Ariane sat brooding over the idea of elf-human harmony like it was a riddle wrapped in a paradox. Ark poured her a drink but offered fruit juice instead. Ariane, highly offended at the toddler-level suggestion, downed the liquor in protest. Then another glass. Her ears began twitching like they were trying to break into interpretive dance. Ark, watching her ears go rogue, downed a glass himself. The flavor hit like joy in a bottle, sweet, smooth, with vanilla notes that whispered, "Life is good." Suddenly, Ariane launched into full drunk hug mode. She clung to Ark like he was the last snack at a party, slurring that she wanted more. She waxed poetic about elves and humans coexisting, then called Ark a stupid bonehead with the sass of a tipsy gremlin. The whole night turned into an elven karaoke session with one-liners that could melt steel beams. By morning, Ariane remembered none of it. She glanced around and saw Ark lying nearby, a literal skeleton. Screaming like she'd seen death itself, she instinctively launched a spell at him. Later, they visited the proprietress, who slyly asked if they had enjoyed themselves. Ariane, panicking, pulled Ark aside and begged for confirmation that nothing weird happened. The proprietress, grinning like a cat who just knocked over a vase, added, "There's little more terrifying than a woman let off her leash." Both cracked up. They rejoined Carsey, who told them they'd ride in the lead wagon while his assistant took the rear. Smirking, Carsey teased that the whole town heard their intensity last night. Ariane turned as red as a tomato in a sauna, but restrained the urge to uppercut him into orbit. In the wagon, Ariane suffered the combined wrath of a hangover and motion sickness. And the cherry on top, a stench strong enough to cause hallucinations. Ark asked what was in the cargo. Carsey revealed it was goblin carcasses marinating in funk to lure out sandworms. The worse the smell, the better the bait. Ark handed Ariane a special tea to help her feel better. Then he asked Carsey more about the sandworm. Carsey advised against using fire, as it attracted the worm. Also, he recently discovered it liked to follow wyvern flocks. The goal was to learn enough about the beast to prevent future casualties. Suddenly, Ariane noticed the rear cart was gone. Moments later, a sandworm, not 5 meters but a towering 30-meter titan, exploded from the ground. Carsey's assistant lay unconscious. Ariane tried using fire magic, but the worm just shrugged it off. Ark engaged it, giving Ariane time to rescue the assistant. With Herculean flair, Ark grappled the sandworm until its ring broke. Afterward, Carsey handed over the promised reward, shivering at the thought of how bad it could have gone without them. Before parting, Ariane asked why Carsey wanted to live with humans. He said it was because he loved them. His time in elf society had painted humans as villains, but reality proved otherwise. He believed in a future of unity. Ariane found the idea laughable until Carsey dropped the Lambert bomb, a city where the Lord married an elf. Ariane assumed it was forced. Carsey clarified that the elf was about to be enslaved before the Lord saved her. Later, Ariane asked Ark if such a future was possible. Ark pointed out that despite being elf and human, they were already a team saving the world. Ariane scoffed, saying Ark barely qualified as human, so he didn't count. Meanwhile, somewhere else in the Empire, a shady fellow named Fumba got accused of causing recent disappearances. He shrugged, saying he only fed crooks and slaves to his pets. With 2 girls on his lap, he gloated about doing work for Emperor Domitianus. When reminded not to speak the emperor's name, Fumba showed off a massive hole containing ravenous monsters. To feed them, he casually tossed one girl into the pit and told the monsters not to choke on her bones. Ark finally arrived at the border town of Kaisek, an outpost marking the beginning of the Holy Revlon Empire's domain. Word on the cobbled streets suggested that kidnapped elves had been smuggled into this town, so the trail had naturally led straight here. As expected from a border town of an empire, Kaisek looked locked up tighter than a dragon's vault. Ariane, the ever-observant dark elf, noted how the place practically reeked of regulation and suspicion. One false step, and the guards might swarm like hornets on a honey thief. Ark didn't disagree. This place practically screamed, "Walk loud and get arrested." Any plans to find the kidnapped elves would have to be executed with the patience of a saint and the stealth of a cat burglar. Ariane suggested splitting up and rendezvousing before sunset, classic divide and conquer tactics. Ark gave the nod, and the duo scattered like sneaky shadows. As the sun dipped and bathed the town in golden light, Ark settled under a quiet awning, casually feeding honeyed walnuts to Panta, arguably the most spoiled puffball in existence. While snacking in peace, a mental recap played in his skull. Weird screams had been reported from a fortress in the east, monsters had been creeping along the empire's fringes, and townspeople were vanishing like coins in a street magician's act. Despite all the security on the surface, the place felt as safe as a room full of explosives and a toddler with a torch. Yet, not a single whisper about the kidnapped elves. The whole situation seemed messier than a goblin's dinner table. Just as Ark was preparing to regroup with Ariane, a scream split the air. Because fate never lets one have a quiet snack. A group of thuggish boys had ganged up on a girl and shoved her to the ground. She attempted to fight back but was outnumbered. Ark, the unofficial superhero of the skeleton world, materialized on the scene, caught one punk by the wrist, and proceeded to deliver an express lesson in street justice. The boys hit the ground faster than common sense in a tavern brawl. The girl, understandably grateful, latched onto Ark like he was the last slice of cake. Right on cue, Ariane arrived, eyes narrowing at the sight of another woman wrapped around her companion like he was a body pillow. And just like that, the temperature dropped. Ark explained, quite innocently, that the girl had been in trouble and needed help. Ariane, raising one elegant brow, asked whether trouble had been officially added to Ark's dating profile. He shrugged, stating if trouble could be solved with a sword, it was hard to resist. Ariane examined the girl for injuries, confirming she was unharmed. The girl, thinking it best to express gratitude, started thanking Ark until she glanced into Ariane's eyes. One look into those seething amber orbs, and the girl decided that gratitude could wait, possibly forever. She bolted. Ariane's death glare. 1. Random girl's courage. On the way back, Ark dared to poke the bear by asking if something was bothering the Elven Blade Queen. Ariane denied everything with a dramatic rage sparkling twinkle in her eye that screamed, "Say one more word and meet his afterlife again." Elsewhere, the trio of thugs who got curb-stomped earlier returned to their shady boss Fumba. They had zilch to show for the day, not even a scrap of food. The boss, evidently lacking in patience and dinner plans, decided that since the boys couldn't fetch food, they could become it instead. A pack of wolves handled the cleanup with enthusiastic efficiency. Back to the real heroes, Ark and Ariane reached the fortress rumored to be the last known location of the missing elves. Ark feared the worst, either they were long gone or something darker had happened. Ariane remained optimistic, betting on a slim chance that some might still be alive. Optimism and denial often shared a room in this world. Ark commended Ariane on the precise intel. She humbly explained that she'd gotten help, unlike someone who was apparently busy collecting maidens on the streets. Ark burst out laughing, the sass rolling off her words like syrup on pancakes. Ariane blinked, genuinely confused at his amusement. Ark teased her again, asking if she was still a bit prickly. Cue another denial and an extra dose of elven fury. They teleported inside the fortress, eerily silent, suspiciously so, like the kind of silence that precedes cinematic horror. Ariane navigated straight to a hidden door. Clearly, she came prepared. The duo descended into a dark basement. Two guards were stationed there, possibly discussing lunch or taxes when Ponta zipped by, providing just the right distraction. Ark and Ariane rushes towards him and immediately killed both of them. After taking care of them, they moved forward. Sliding open another door, a horrific stench hit them, like something had died, then got resurrected just to die again. The prison space was massive and unnaturally eerie. Blood scent lingered in the air like it paid rent. Pumbaa entered the scene, summoned by his rowdy pets. He was greeted by Ark's towering presence and Ariane's intense stare. The creep showed zero hesitation, immediately claiming Ariane as his property. Ark, not one for tolerance, prepared to dish out a lesson. Ariane, however, suddenly turned and whacked Ark. Confusion clouded the skeleton's sockets. She attacked again. Something was clearly wrong. Pumbaa grinned like a gremlin. The reason became apparent. Ariane had been cursed. Ark's uncursed spell lit up, but Ariane didn't budge. Her mind was trapped. Here, within her psyche, Ariane saw her sister Even. The vision scolded her for weakness. Weakness, according to Even, was unforgivable. Only strength could protect their kind from the humans who would subjugate them. The dark elf was told to prove her strength. Outside, Ark continued to hammer away at the curse with uncurse. The magic was working, sort of. Something was off. Pumbaa, the monster sorcerer in disguise, wasn't even casting a spell. Ariane pounced again. Ark caught a glimpse of light flickering in her cloak. Ponta, the furry MVP, dove in and unearthed an imp hiding in Ariane's cape, casting illusions from her blind spot. Ark roasted the imp like marshmallows at a bonfire. Pumbaa finally dropped the disguise. He was Rozambanya monster sorcerer Pumbaa Sudu Rozambanya, a man whose name sounded like a typo, but who took monster making to disturbing heights. Ark spotted familiar control rings on nearby creatures, similar to those used on wolves and sandworms. Pumbaa, ever the showman, summoned a colossal beast. Ark gently set Ariane aside, ready to throw hands. He demanded answers about the elves. Pumbaa casually confessed that most elves had been used in magical experiments. The leftovers became snacks for his monsters. The level of cruelty would have made even demons take notes. Laughing maniacally, Pumbaa thought his giant pet would be a game changer. Ark cut off its head mid-monologue. Classic boss battle interruption. Pumbaa unleashed his zoo of horror, ogres, basilisks, and monsters not even bestiaries dared mention. Ark, unbothered, tore through them like a lawnmower on overgrown weeds. Mid-fight, Pumbaa boasted that Ariane was about to be monster chow. Just as Ark turned to help, a liquid prison slammed onto the beast, threatening her. Enter Chiome, the ninja cat girl with perfect timing. Her water-style skills drowned the creature. Pumbaa wasn't done bragging until Chiome revealed that all his monsters had already been eliminated. No backup, no pawns, just one weaselly necromancer left. Before Ark could carve poetic justice into his skull, the fortress trembled. Pumbaa announced his ultimate creation had awakened. Of course it had. Evil sorcerers never run out of final bosses. Pumbaa ran like a rat while Ark grabbed Ariane and escaped with the group. The fortress collapsed behind them, smoke rising like curtains after a dramatic finale. Inside the ruins, a hydra stirred, a monster with legendary regeneration, water magic mastery, and an ego to match. The true battle had only just begun. Chiome immediately suspects the beast before them to be the infamous ruiner of nations. With brows furrowed in concern, she speculates whether the mysterious man seen earlier might be behind it. The very idea that a human could control a monster of such magnitude feels utterly absurd to her. Meanwhile, Ark catches a glimpse of the rings on the hydra just as the creature locks its many eyes on them and hurls a devastating attack their way. At that very moment, Pumbaa storms toward the clergy, bursting with rage. Demanding recognition for his supposed achievements, he throws a tantrum over not receiving the praise he thinks he deserves. With all the subtlety of a toddler denied candy, he insists no one in their entire faction could possibly compare to him. The priests, unimpressed and possibly regretting not investing in earplugs, hit back with savage honesty. They accuse him of being weak, a desperate man seeking superficial strength devoid of discipline. The roast is served flaming hot, and Pumbaa doesn't take it well. Pumbaa stares at his monstrous hydra, gleaming with pride. A creature like this, in his eyes, is the ultimate mic drop for all who ever looked down on him. With grand flair, he commands the beast to ravage the city. The hydra lumbers forward, heading straight for the unsuspecting town like a mythological bulldozer. Meanwhile, Ark, Chiome, and the eternally bouncy Ponta emerge from the protective shield Ark managed to activate in the nick of time. Chiome, still reeling from the impact they barely survived, stares at Ark in awe. The shield held up against an attack capable of flattening a fortress. This isn't some bargain bin mercenary. She demands to know just what sort of being Ark really is. Ark laughs it off, humbly presenting himself as nothing more than a wandering sword for hire under Lady Ariane's employment. They remember Ariane and start frantically searching for her. They find her standing nearby. Ariane, voice calm but laced with fury, reveals she was conscious the entire time, just trapped beneath a web of illusions that kept recasting, immobilizing her. Every word Arc spoke, every action taken, she heard it all. With eyes gleaming with vengeance, she demands they find the enemy and give him something he truly deserves: regret, served with a side of flaming payback. Chiyome, all in for the beatdown, agrees with Ariane. A monster tamer with command over a hydra is far too dangerous to ignore. Ariane guesses Fumba believes them to be dead, making this the perfect setup for a sneak attack. When Arc asks about the hydra, Chiyome grimly remarks that it's an unstoppable calamity, a literal force of nature, ruiner of nations. In her eyes, it's futile to stop something that embodies destruction itself. Arc, ever the contrarian with skeleton swagger, disagrees. Earthquakes and cyclones might be unavoidable, but a hydra, he believes hydra can be skewered. With plans made, the team gears up for a monster hunt. Back in the Imperial Palace, Holy Emperor Domitianus is briefed. The ruiner of nations has matured as expected, and will soon be combat ready. The empty rings created from studying Fumba's magic are nearly complete, although controlling the hydra still requires the bumbling sorcerer. Domitianus, likely weighing the pros and cons of keeping a liability like Fumba on the payroll, ponders his next move. Down in the chaos, the hydra begins its assault. Guards rally to protect their land and people, putting up a brave front despite the monumental odds. Arc launches his first strike, Wyvern skill. It hits the hydra with all the force of a paper fan. Undeterred, Arc charges again, unleashing a stronger skill, then chaining it into the devastating armor lariat. The monster is knocked to the ground. From afar, Fumba gapes in disbelief, shocked to see Arc still breathing after taking a hit from Hydra's breath. Hydra prepares another breath attack, launching it toward Arc, who immediately counters with Dimension Move, but one of the Hydra's heads snatches him mid-teleport. Suspiciously strategic behavior. Arc wonders if the earlier breath was merely a distraction, and if the beast is smart enough to sacrifice one head to trap him. Time to raise the stakes. From the elite class of Sacred Knight, Arc unleashes Judgment, a high-tier combat skill, slicing the Hydra's heads clean off. No dice, they regrow instantly. Not surprising. What comes next is untested territory. Arc summons a grand, powerful magic he's never used before. For 5 minutes, it's go big or go home. He summoned Ifrit, the infernal demon. Elsewhere, Ariane, Chiyome, and Ponta sprint toward Fumba, only to come to a screeching halt when they spot the towering Ifrit. Shrugging off the demonic distraction, they confront Fumba, who, whatever the creep, asks if they've arrived to be his sweethearts. Ariane, wielding both sass and sword, clarifies she's here to kill him. Fumba, full of delusions and bad decisions, claims she's an insect compared to the might of the Hydra. Ariane counters with a brutal truth: the Hydra is powerful, but that power doesn't belong to him. Fumba himself is weaker than a Wi-Fi signal during a storm. He argues back, calling himself the Hydra's master, but Ariane points out he's just piggybacking off something he doesn't understand. His entire existence is one big overcompensating magic show. Hearing this triggers Fumba. Memories of past insults flood in. Enraged, he whips out a rope to summon illusions again. Ariane, now immune to his party tricks, instantly slays the incoming imps. She reminds him that falling for the same illusion twice would be embarrassing, even for someone with more ego than intelligence. Fumba's face begins glowing with cursed markings. Just then, Chiyome lands a stealthy slash on his back. Blood spurts, and the markings start glitching like a cheat video game mod. Chiyome had a theory that those marks controlled the monsters, but due to their complex design, even a minor disturbance could mess them up. She was right. Fumba loses his connection to the Hydra, and the tantrum begins. He cackles maniacally, declaring that now no one can stop the Hydra as it'll wipe out the entire town. Ariane charges him, but his feeble attacks fail to land. In a glorious reversal, Fumba starts groveling, insisting he was just following orders. Panic becomes his new cologne. Ariane coldly tells him to save the apologies for the ones already dead. With blazing fury, she calls upon her power of flaming embers to reduce him to ash. Fumba screams, sobs, and quite literally dies doing what he did best, being a coward. Meanwhile, Ifrit goes toe-to-toe with the Hydra. A flaming fist crushes the rings, keeping the beast under control. Sensing freedom, the Hydra tries to flee, but Arc seizes its tail and launches it sky high. Ifrit ends the encounter with Flame Hellion, an inferno so fierce that the Hydra is reduced to cinders. With the battle over, Arc rejoins his companions. Dunka, ever efficient, uses a whispering fowl to inform Ariane that Princess Uriarna of Rodin has made contact with the Elder Elf, Lord Fangus. In a quiet meeting, Uriarna vows that Rodin will take responsibility for finding the missing elves. She acknowledges that the persecution and betrayal of the ancient pact were human crimes. Swearing by her royal honor, she promises atonement. Lord Fangus appreciates the gesture but suspects there's more to her sincerity. Uriarna reveals the realpolitik behind her words. Her brother's sect is backed by the Revlon Empire, and her other brother Dekaris was supported by the Holy Revlon Empire. These empires, built on shared heritage, continue to oppress other races. A monarch with her support would threaten the elf-kind again. She offers a deal. In exchange for backing her claim to the throne, Rodin will defend elvish territory against Revlon invasions. Fangus is pleased and agrees, imagining a future where humans and elves grow closer. Uriarna notes that interspecies harmony may already be underway. After all, a lord of Lambert has taken an elf wife. Fangus smiles, believing they might become excellent neighbors. Elsewhere, Ariane seems pensive. Arc, sensing her unease, mentions the news from Dunka. Ariane admits it's a surprise that humans are taking such proactive steps to help elves. Parsi's old musings about coexistence suddenly don't sound so far-fetched. The winds of change are blowing strong. Meanwhile, Sect gets word from Cetrion about Uriarna's survival and diplomatic victory. Suspicion creeps in. Someone from his own circle might have betrayed him. As for Uriarna, memories from the day she supposedly died resurface. She recalls a moment of divine clarity and a vision of Arc, whom she now views as an angel. If reincarnation comes with side quests, hers just got one. Back in the capital, Domitianus' is informed about Fumba's death and the Hydra's annihilation, but he shrugs it off. The employee rings worked, and that's all that matters. Still, curiosity lingers that who exactly brought down the monster. Arc believes that someone is clearly gossiping about him. With everything wrapped up nicely, Arc declares he'll continue his adventure quietly and inconspicuously. The others stare at him like he just claimed to be shy after lighting up the skyline. He removes his helmet, prompting Chiome to jump behind a tree. In horror, Ariane explains that Arc is cursed, which gives him his skeletal appearance. Arc turns to Chiome, who's still peeking out like a squirrel afraid of a vacuum cleaner. Despite the situation, he laughs and thanks her for her help. Then he asks if he can visit her ninja village. Chiome, still clutching the tree like a security blanket, agrees to host him. So, the tale of Arc once aiming for a chill, low-key life continues. New allies, powerful foes, and a curse yet to be broken. The spring near the Dragon Lord's lair awaits. The journey goes on, still full of mystery, magic, and unintentional comedy.